Hello everyone, welcome to the product webinar of VWO. My name is Utkarsh Rai and I'm a product marketer at VWO. And I have Ashwin Gupta with me. Ashwin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Ashwin and I handle growth at VWO. I'm really excited to talk to you guys today.
For today's session, we are discussing how to read your visitors' mind through their online behavior. So before we begin, if you have any questions during the session, you can send it to us using the GoToWebinar question widget. We will take your questions at the end of the session. You can also use Twitter to ask questions to us. The special hashtag for today's session is AskVWO, or you can simply tag me or Ashwin to your question and we'll be happy to take them up. So in this session, we have divided it into the three parts. First, we'll be discussing about what are the key challenges you can identify in your funnel. And when we say funnel, it's in the entire experience of your website. Then we'll be covering about how you can use different segmentation techniques to gather better insights around your visitors. And in the end, we'll be discussing about once you have all these insights together, how you will club them together and build testing ideas, which will help you in optimizing your customer journey. So why we are here today? We recently did a survey report with CXL, and the target audience for this survey was mostly our customers. And this was very crucial insight which came out of that survey, that more than 38% of customers or companies who are using VWO or who are using conversion optimization tools does not have a formal conversion research process. I was discussing this with Ashwin some time back, and we were deliberating on things like that. There's some key industries like e-commerce, SaaS, a lot of lead generation companies who are not following any process for generating visitor or understanding visitor behavior. So Ashwin and I decided to take matter in our own hand, and hence this session. So Ashwin, why don't you tell us about what are some business goals which businesses you have worked with have helped in marking them?
So I think business goals are a critical part of defining the starting point of the CRO process. But before that, I think it's very important to realize what matters to your business, what are the goals or what are the metrics that you're optimizing for, and also realizing what kind of audience are you looking to optimize for. Are these people who are already buying from you in the case of e-commerce, or are you optimizing for people who are abandoning? And what are the segments that matter to you, and making sure you're clear about these things before you even start off with looking at visitor recordings or looking at any kind of data. So I think having that clarity sometimes is a bit tricky, because you obviously intuitively want to get into the insights and capture as many insights as possible. But I think defining the scope at the beginning of what is your business problem, what are your business goals, what are the key KPIs, and having them in place is important. And once you have that, once you have the business goal that you want to optimize for, I think defining a proper funnel to imagine the customer journey, how a customer is entering the funnel, what are the different steps they are taking, and then at the end of the day, how are they converting? And in today's world, what is happening to them after they have converted? So imagining the customer journey, imagining it as a funnel, and then defining that into the platform becomes very important, whatever you may be using, VWO, Google Analytics, or anything else.
So I understand where you're coming from, Ashwin. So I think a lot of online businesses who uses tools like VWO or any other conversion optimization tool have their goals and funnels set up in Google Analytics. They're looking at data around what number of visitors are leaving their site, what is the time spent, bounce rates, returning visitor, existing visitors, and things like that. So why set it up in VWO?
So I get this question a lot. Like Google Analytics is obviously a really great tool, and we also use that extensively. But at the end of the day, like what happens is when you look at the numbers a lot, at some point you detach yourself from empathizing with your customers. And to empathize, you need to understand really what's going on. What are they trying to do on your website, on your business, and how are they interacting? And imagining that is pretty important. So instead of actually, explaining, how, defining goals and funnels, could help you within VWO, I think I'll actually deep dive into the product itself and show you how it can help you beyond just looking at the numbers. Here you can see, what we did was, we wanted to create a product tour on our homepage to see, to give users an understanding of what the platform entails, what are the different parts of the platform. And this is, as you can see, this is the performance of this, goal in a particular week. And you can also see the overall performance, like unique conversions, visitors, conversion rate. And obviously, just like in GA, you can look at the user segments. So these are some of the user segments that we thought were important for us. So you can define the segments that are important for you, save them, and you can access different segments within the segment bar. I'll deep dive into this later, but you can play around with this. But where things get really interesting is at the bottom part of the page. So it's not just about understanding, that the conversion rate is 1.42% for this particular goal, but what is happening to people who did not convert. So here I can look at the heat map. Also, I can look at the visitor recordings of people who did not convert or who converted. So in this case, since the conversion rate is on the lower side, obviously, people who did not convert, looking at their user behavior becomes important. So I can just select did not convert and click on view recordings, and it'll load up. So what I've done is it'll show up here. I've actually already loaded up this page. So here are all the visitor recordings of the people who did not convert for that goal. Now you must have seen, I talked about a segment that was important for me that I'd already saved in VWO, similarly to what you would do in GA. So in this case, what you see is you have a list of visitor recordings of people who did not convert for that particular segment. And what I can do now is start looking at these visitor recordings and start taking notes. And that would help me, capture visitor insights. So the basic idea here is that, you can start visualizing not just, you can go beyond just looking at numbers. You can start visualizing, why people are dropping off, and looking at visitor recordings and start, getting into the insights part of it without even, talking to a single customer. And I think that's a great starting point. Similarly, in funnels, you could do the same thing. So here, what we did was we were visualizing our journey going from, the homepage to the free trial submission. And this journey itself, as you can see, there's a lot of drop off on the first step. And this is for the entire journey. And if there's a user segment that is important for me, again, I'll take the example of people who are on iOS in the US. I apply that setting, and here you can see like almost every 100% of the people have dropped off, which is insane. And now what do I do with this data? One thing is obviously I can panic and figure and stop this campaign or do something about it, which is obviously something I should do. But at the same time, I can deep dive, why people are, dropping off for that particular segment. So if I click on view recordings here, automatically it will take me to the interface, load up all the visitor recordings for that particular segment with that, with that segment already applied. And again, I can see the drop off in my funnel for that particular segment, and deep dive into this. And I can apply even more filters on top. For example, page count is more than 5 or anything like that. So it becomes a very powerful tool, when it comes to defining goals and funnels within VWO and starting to imagine your customer journey within VWO.
Yeah, so I understand where you're coming from, and goals are important for a business, and so we even built it into funnels. We saw it moving, like one part of visitors are moving from A to B to C, and then coming to an end, which is going to be either sign a form or a checkout. But what are the essential things you need to take care of in terms of defining your goals? What are the things which you feel we need to set things up straight in terms of defining those funnels and goals?
So yeah, so I think there are two parts to it. So obviously, there'll be some, lagging indicators that you'll have. Obviously revenue is something that, a lot of our users optimize for, but that happens right at the end of the funnel. And, knowing what you're optimizing for at the end of the funnel is important. Is it, the time that people spend on a page? Is it, sending more people to the thank you page? Is it for more, transactions that you want to do? Understanding that final goal is important, but the steps in between, is just as critical. What's happening at the top of the funnel, what is happening at the middle of the funnel, and having a tight grip on, what's happening within the funnel itself would give you the best chance of fixing, wherever the leakage is happening. So, when you're defining goals and funnels, again, start off with your business goals, but then, imagine the customer journey that a user is taking within the platform, and then try to recreate that within VWO, so that you can start looking at the visitor behavior of people who are, not who are dropping off from your funnel at different stages. And that, I think, is a great starting point.
All right, let's try to understand that through a journey.
So yeah, this is something, again, this is a bit complicated, but for e-commerce, as you can see, that, this is the entire customer journey until someone, actually buys a product. And this is divided into three parts. Obviously, someone who is, entering into the funnel, using the menu to find the products that they're looking for, searching for it, or using filters, and then going into the second aspect where they're exploring the product itself, and then in the third aspect where they're spending time adding it to cart, applying coupons, going through checkout, and stuff like that. So now in this customer journey, what's important is to, divide this funnel into, the top part of the funnel, the middle part of the funnel, and the end part of the funnel. And this is not a hard and fast rule. You can, depending on how complex or simple your customer journey is, you can take an intuitive call, on how you should divide the customer journey into. Why am I saying you need to divide? Because then you can optimize for each of those phases and have different, metrics that you're optimizing for. And so that, you're not just optimizing for the last step, you're optimizing for the entire customer journey, and you have a cumulative effect when it comes to your optimization efforts, when it comes to your customer journey. And here you can see, if I have to translate that, again, each phase needs to be imagined as a funnel within the platform. And, that, I think that becomes very powerful for the end customer.
Yeah, so I see, Ashwin, that we have come to a point where once we have defined our goals and funnels, and we are able to see visitors who are converting, who are not converting. It's a great insight for us. We are seeing how much percentage or how much number of users are visitors are moving from one part of the funnel to the other part of the funnel, and all this is great insight. We get to know what they are doing on the site, what are the friction areas and all. But if I need to focus only on a certain segment, only on a certain group of visitors who I know that I can draw most of my revenue from, or who is the most critical set, then how we can drill down into insights for that segment?
Yes. So for each of the business, for all of us, we have particular segments that are the most critical, and making sure that they perform well, and they are always, that their customer journey is always being optimized, becomes key in achieving your business goals. So segmentation is a great starting point to kind of explore your visitor data that is there in the that is sitting in the VWO platform. So I know it can be very overwhelming, when you open up, visitor recordings, and you see, 10,000, 20,000, in some cases 100K, 200K visitor recordings. Where do you start? I think before even starting that, you need to ask the question to yourself. Again, what is the goal am I optimizing for? What does the funnel look like? And then, what are the parts of the funnel am I optimizing for, which you can figure out from the funnel itself. Once you have that, what you can start doing is that, start creating views to understand the behavior a bit deeper. So again, what I'll do is I'll actually show you within the platform so that you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that would be very, yeah, that would be great.
So just one second. So this is what I showed you. So again, these are all the visitor recordings that I have within VWO for all the user segments. So obviously I can slice and dice based on the user segments that are already there or what I've defined. But you can also create views within visitor recordings that give you an insight on the behavior that matters to your business. So what I'll do is I'll start creating a view. So here, let's say I want to look at insights on my pricing page. So, maybe let's say on the funnels analysis, I figured out, that a lot of people, and this is, something that came up because we just recently went through a pricing transition, where, a lot of people dropped off because they could not see the pricing on our pricing page. So if I have to, kind of see, why people are dropping off or where they're getting frustrated, I can create a view for that particular page. And then, this is where it gets very interesting. I can actually target it based on their behavior. So you can go through these conditions. There are a lot of things that you can use, but I really wanted to show behavioral targeting today to you. So what you can do is here is you can actually just scroll down um, and click on behavior. And you can see, you can figure out segments based on, someone clicking on a particular segment, or sorry, a particular element, a user who's trying to close a page, or even a custom trigger. So in this case, let's say, a user who's trying to, close a particular page, I can actually click on that and add another condition that, just one second, that their location is the United States, because that's where most of our users are from. And once I've created this view, I'll have the visitor recordings of all the people who are on our pricing page and who are trying to exit it, and I can start creating these views. So again, what you need to do is, this is a very small example, but what you need to do is figure out what kind of things you want to kind of track from a behavior standpoint, what kind of targeting you want to use to figure out what the users are doing on your website, and define those views within VWO. And then you will start collecting those visitor recordings, and as it starts populating, it will again on a daily basis give you an insight around those around those segments and that behavior. Then, so this is what I talked about from a targeting perspective. Then another thing that is really important again from a segmentation standpoint is looking at looking at deep diving into the recordings that you already have. So again, I'll go back to all the recordings that I have. So here, one thing that we have just recently introduced for our enterprise plans is called custom dimensions. So we know, that certain things, matter to a particular business. So I'll give an example of what we have done. From a growth perspective, what we are looking to do was, look at people who are highly engaged with our platform and people who are not that engaged, who are not logging in, who are not creating A/B tests, and there are different buckets in between. So what I can do here is that, actually send those values to VWO. This is the kind of information, user attributes that you would send to your CRM platforms, but now you can actually do that, send that information to VWO also. So once you have that information within VWO, you can again start segmenting for those particular highly targeted segments that are important for your business. So in this case, let's say a product name. So if let's say CRO and testing are the two product names, two product lines that we have. So if I put in CRO, it'll give me a list of all the visitor recordings for people who are on CRO. So having that kind of flexibility within VWO and using that to figure out the right kind of recordings becomes very important.
All right. So what I understand is that once we have uh, once we have information about the target markets which are mature for our business, the kind of personas who are best for who buys from us, who have an understanding or has the best use case of our product or services, and all those things. So we can basically create segments and see information and their insights or whatever they're doing on our website while they're interacting with maybe a product page or doing XYZ activities on the sites. We can track all of that.
Yes, you can. So again, again to summarize this, because I know this is a lot. Uh, so from a targeting perspective, you can actually figure out the segments that are important for you, and really recreate the experience a user is having on a particular step of a funnel. And then you can create these views so that you start populating those views with the most important visitor recordings that are important for your business. And then segmentation lets you dig deeper. So if you integrate it with, if you add, custom dimensions on top of it, where you send particular values around your users into VWO, that makes it even more powerful, because then you can deep dive into the areas, problem areas that are there on your business. For example, for us, it was vwo.com/pricing. If I start pushing in data around the plans that people are, picking up, or around, around their behavior or their engagement, buckets that they're in on the website, then I can then slice and dice and figure out, what is the change in behavior from, one particular segment to another. So, deep diving becomes really easy once I followed the process up to this point.
All right. All right. Also, I think here's a brief about custom dimension. We can also send in values of saying, let's say if we know X amount of visitors or X amount of users bought leather shoes from a website, and we have information on that, we can send that information to VWO, create a segment, and track folks what are the behavior, and maybe target them through the A/B tests.
Yes. So, like for example, let's say you have different segments, different buckets of average order value in e-commerce. So let's say your average order value hovers around $100, but then there are people who are buying $150, $200 worth of stuff from your website. So you can actually send those values across into VWO, and then when you're looking into your visitor recordings, again, if you're optimizing for a product page, you can actually create that view within visitor recordings. And then after you've created that view, you can use that information to slice and dice the report even further, so that you understand, the most important segment of my business, how is that performing for that particular step in the funnel. So having these things in place beforehand makes the job of getting into the visitor recordings, slicing and dicing, getting the insights, and getting out becomes incredibly easy. Otherwise, it can be an overwhelming process.
Perfect. But I have another question. Like, I think we have covered pretty much everything, like all the information and everything we have on the website. We can see if there are some challenges which our visitors are facing while navigating. We can see, we can focus on our most critical segment, our target audience, our personas, and things like that. But what about things which are not there on the site, which maybe there are few things which my visitor is looking at and that does not show up on the site? How we can gather such kind of feedback from our visitors?
So, so I think here, you may have a lot of people who are exiting your product, and you do not know why they're doing it. And once they have exited, once your website, they'll never come back, because they had an inferior experience. And here, I think collecting feedback or collecting NPS scores becomes really important. And I think a lot of businesses are doing that already. But I think there's a scope of getting a step deeper into it, because what happens is that, let's say, you run a survey on your website, about 1 or 2 or 3% of the people will actually reply to it. And I think that's still a very high percentage. I think the actual percentages are much lower. And if you want to talk to them, the second time, let's say someone gave you an NPS score of 2, and you want to talk to them again, it becomes incredibly hard. The chances, the chances of talking to them for the second time is almost next to impossible. So what we can do there, and that's where VWO platform really shines from a connectivity standpoint, is that now in surveys you can actually start to look at visitor recordings of the sessions when people gave you a particular rating, or when people gave you a particular reply. and you can actually go to that particular recording and see what the user was doing before giving you that rating. And this is pretty important. It doesn't always work. Like sometimes there are sessions where you'll not be able to figure out things. But in my personal experience, and we were optimizing, just to give you a bit of a background, we were recently optimizing our A/B testing reports, and looking at conversion rates did not make a lot of sense because everyone looks at reports. A major chunk of our audience looks at reports. So what we tried to do was run an NPS survey to figure out what was the experience on VWO reports. And then the replies came in, and some people obviously did not have a great experience, and they said like it does not make sense to me, or I do not know what's going on here. And it was very hard to talk to them for the second time or to schedule a call, let's say in a week or two. And
Got it.
the time is very important. All I did was ran the survey, looked at the visitor recordings, and 30 or 40% of them were useful. And about 3 to 5% of the people were the people who actually replied. And then the second step of the funnel would have been even much lower. Maybe 1% of them would have gotten on a call with me. But here 40% of the people, because I saw their sessions, I was able to get insights out of their experience and use that to optimize the A/B testing reports. So it is a great way to get the most out of your surveys by looking at visitor recordings.
Yeah, I also remember that very recently we ran a survey on our website discussing about, are they finding the content relevant? Are they finding, I mean, whatever been listed out on the pricing page and everywhere else, whether it's making sense, whether there's something which they are looking for we did not find on the website. And I think we didn't run an experiment on that, and we have data for that.
Yeah, so what I can do is I can actually quickly show you what we did. So yeah, so here you can see, like we got about 260 replies on this survey. And the question was, were you able to discover information that you wanted in this visit? And almost 60% of the people said no. And what I can do here is I can actually see the visitor recordings of these people from here itself. And where it gets interesting is that all the responses that people gave, I can actually go through them. Let's say in this case, someone says, oh, actually, I can pick this one up. Does VWO offer mobile apps A/B testing? I can click on that and see the visitor recording and figure out, where the user went to actually, search for mobile app testing. Obviously, it would be on the page itself, but what was the second touch point that they, went for after clicking on that? So again, this information is incredibly powerful from getting the most out of the surveys you run on your website.
So I think it's the best voice for our silent visitors.
Yes.
Who does not come back. I mean, especially visitors, right? You can if they can attempt a survey, but it's very difficult to get back to them.
Yes.
To actually see what they were doing,
yeah,
and what build that, I mean, perspective for them to answer in a certain way is very essential, and
yes,
we can figure out through that. So Ashwin, I understand that we have pretty much covered what the visitor has, or what a business can have on the website, and what their visitors can see and cannot see. We can gather insights around what they are doing on the site, and also insights on what you don't have on the website, and what was their real expectation, like what was the real motivation they came onto your site for.
Right.
Now, with all these insights together, it still is very overwhelming for me or for my team to run experiments, because now I have so many testing ideas, and I am running into a problem of deciding which one to prioritize. And maybe let's say I have a bigger team, and it's not just me who runs experiments. I need to work towards getting a buy-in from my team, from the stakeholders, and convince them that maybe we should run an experiment. So is there something we can do to prioritize, or maybe just speed up the entire hypothesis process for running experiment?
So yeah, so I think what's important is that you capture the insights as efficiently as possible, because that acts as evidence for the hypotheses that you will create in the future, and having that evidence is key to convince your stakeholders and to convince your managers to actually you know approve your priority list of experiments or what you should test next. But since you collect so many insights, and as you said, there'll be people within your team who would also give you a lot of insights, and that is great. But having a holistic view of these insights and using that to create your hypotheses in a data-driven manner becomes important in having a very effective prioritization list of experiments that you could run, or creating a CRO roadmap for your website. So what you can do here is, um, start collecting or tagging observations within the VWO platform. Wherever you see, in a visitor recording that you see an insight, all you have to do is, add an observation, and it's incredibly simple. Let me just quickly show you. So here, I've opened this up. This is a great example. As you saw, someone was, trying to get into plants, and they clicked on it again to kind of, deep dive and figure out, if they had mobile A/B testing or not. So if that is the insight, all I have to do is click on this, sign, which is a sign for creating observations. All you have to do is here and, write an observation that says, the user clicked multiple times on the plan button to figure out all the features. And all I do is press enter. And once I've done that, it saves the visitor recording into the plan layer. So just 1 second, I'll actually go into the observations part of the website. So here you can see, the insights are all here, and I just created an insight created by me, and you can see the visitor recording once I click on it, and you can see there's no hypotheses, associated with it. Now, what will happen is, and this happens a lot, whatever the recent insight is, you would have a bias for that insight, and you would always want to optimize for that insight. But what about the insights that you had, a couple of weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago, or insights from other stakeholders? So all you can do here is actually look at all the insights together using, the page URL here, for example, and see all the insights in a single view. And this is critical. So it's not just giving you insights that you collected, but all the insights that your team, came up with, using the VWO platform. And having that in one place becomes important. So once you have these visitor recordings in place, it's incredibly easy to create the hypotheses, by tagging multiple observations. So I'll quickly show that. It's taking a bit of time to load because we are also doing the webinar. But while it is loading, what I can also show you, the insights that I'm talking about are happening on the platform itself. Now, what about the insights that you have to collect from your competitors, or any kind of competitor website, and you see you see observations about what they're changing or what they're experimenting with, and it's incredibly easy to do that using VWO Chrome plugin. So all you have to do is you have the VWO Chrome plugin, you click on that observations, and the observation mode is already turned on, and you can click anywhere on the page and add an observation, and you just add it from here, and it'll automatically show up in the observations dashboard. So what this helps you with is that you can start collecting observations not just from the VWO platform, but even outside. And if you have a lot of users in your organization, or if you have people who are in customer facing roles, VWO Chrome plugin is a great way to give them the power of giving you insights on that particular page, and have that directly come into your plan layer within VWO. So again, going back into the observations aspect, once you have all of this in, all you have to do is, these are all the insights around VWO pricing. Let's say I want to use 3 observations as evidence for a hypothesis. All I do is select the three observations that I want to use as evidence to create a new hypothesis, and just click on new hypothesis. And it automatically picks up the observations. It already has the visitor recordings of these observations that are tagged with this hypothesis. You can use the ICE framework to prioritize. Let's say the confidence is 4, importance is 5, ease is 3. You can add labels to this hypothesis and add the page URL. And if you have more files, you can add that and just create the hypothesis. So in this case, obviously, I have to fill up a lot of the information. So once you have this in place, it automatically goes into your Kanban board under hypotheses, where you can start looking at all the hypotheses that you've created, and suddenly you go from insights to actually having an overview of hypotheses backed by evidences or insights that you collected within VWO and outside VWO, and you can then start prioritizing with the stakeholders within your company.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing way to collaborate with teams. If there are some teams using the tool outside your own team, like mostly when I work, the product marketing team is using the tool left, right, center in conjunction with what all things the product team is doing, or our content team is doing in terms of tracking blogs and other posts. So yeah, I think these things work really well. Also, the Chrome extension, it doesn't have to be competitor website. Even if you see amazing ideas, if your peers are using, I mean, I come across a lot of ideas on websites around product marketing and writing different ways, or layouts of maybe structuring a blog and things like that, and I can use it to create an observation and maybe improve the structure of our blog pages, and see how that improves in readability, time spent on page, and things like metrics like that.
Yeah, so even our support team sometimes uses the Chrome plugin to actually highlight problems that are there within the app. So if they're getting a lot of tickets from a particular page of the app itself, sometimes they would just take a quick screenshot using the VWO Chrome plugin and actually put it directly in front of the optimization team, at the company, and then they can start using that as evidence to prioritize and create a list of experiments that we would want to run. So it's not just my ideas that I could use, but also the ideas that other people are, or other insights from other people within the company. So if you can get a lot of people on Chrome plugin within an organization, you'll have much richer data, much richer insights that you could use to create much more in-depth hypotheses that can help you create a great CRO testing roadmap.
All right. So I think we have come to the end of our session. And so to quickly brush up, we started by defining goals and funnels. Goals which are critical to your business. Funnels are basically milestones which you have in terms of reaching your goals. And these funnels will help you understand where your visitors are dropping off. Then segmentations, by building clusters of your target groups in terms of understanding what that set amongst your visitor are behaving or doing on your website. These groups are very critical to your business because you can define them as per your personas. You can send data to VWO to earmark various different segments in terms of understanding what they're doing on your website. Then for things which are not on your website and your visitors have some expectation, you can simply ask them using a survey and take their feedback in terms of what to improve, what they were expecting, what are the things they did not find on the page, and like that. And then once you have all these insights together, you consolidate them, you put them at one place and prioritize. By building a pool of testing ideas, you maybe come up with multiple observations, you bind them together, you use it as a set to convince your stakeholders that this is the amount of data you have around a testing idea, get their buy-in, and start running experiments. Anything you would want to add?
Yeah, so again, just to reiterate, it's very important to get your starting point right. Again, starting off with what is the business goal, what are the segments that are important for your business, visualizing the customer journey, converting that into a funnel, and understanding what parts of the funnel you want to optimize for. And once you have that in place, you can then use our segments and targeting features to deep dive and understand their behavior and start collecting insights. And once you have that in place, using the plan layer of VWO, it's incredibly easy to club them together as evidences for your hypotheses, prioritize them, and then have a CRO roadmap. Then you can start, testing upon. And there may be some ideas, that are absolutely critical that would give. If I fix this, it'll give me an improvement. And you can skip the testing aspect completely and just, implement them. But having that process in place is very important to get to the right kind of insights. Otherwise, the amount of data that companies collect these days, it's very easy to get lost.
All right. With that, I'll open the session for Q&A. And as most of you who have attended webinars where I'm hosting, I usually come up with my first question always. So Ashwin, let's start with this question. Like we talked about goals and funnels a lot, and there are some cases where the funnel is not very deep. Like if you talk about SEM campaigns, you talk about landing pages who are just directly generating leads, there's hardly any funnel there. So what would be your recommendation? Like what kind of visitor experiment they should run?
So I think understanding even the steps that people take on a particular page. So for example, someone comes in from a particular keyword that you're optimizing for, and understanding what kind of things they will be looking on the page itself. Maybe the first step is that they scroll up to a particular percentage, and then they click on a particular element, and then what is the next step that they're doing. I think understanding the first 2 or 3 steps they would take to convert is important, and understanding what is happening in between. And even if it's a one-step funnel, for example, someone is coming in from a keyword and then landing on a page and then just converting or buying a product in a single click itself, or signing up in a single click, it's absolutely fine to see how that drop off is happening. So I think you can have although it sounds a bit weird, you can have a one-step funnel, but if there's a field that they have to fill in, or particular things that they have to click before they finally convert to the goal that you're optimizing for, you should have that in between the funnel. Otherwise, if it's a one-step funnel, you should have that in place.
All right. So we have a few questions coming in. The first question we'll take is from Alexandra. And Alexandra has a question which is more be like a follow-up question to what I asked you. Was that how do you create milestone in optimizing the design of a page, for example, that can't be conceived within a funnel? For example, a page that contains different information in different tabs and that a user can go from one tab to another. This is a case for publishing industries.
Yeah, so in this case, what's happening is that people are spending a lot of time reading the articles from one page to another. So in this case, I would not kind of disintegrate based on the number of articles that they're reading. I would look at people coming in, and then they're reading the articles, and then how much time are they spending on the web page, and then when are they dropping off. So I think in this case, the time that they take to actually drop off becomes key. So what I'll do is I'll have this funnel in place, and then have the session time in ascending order, and look at the visitor recordings where people are actually dropping off pretty quickly compared to the average time someone would spend reading the articles on the publishing page. And then look at their visitor recordings. Why did they drop off? Are they just scrolling? Are they not able to find the relevant content? Are they searching a lot? Are they looking for particular keyword and they did not get the kind of articles that they were looking for? Maybe the recommendations were not something that they really enjoyed. So you can see that behavior. So again, at least my recommendation would be to not look at divide it based on different articles that are creating, because I think it's part of the same step. Instead, look at the session time that they are that they're using reading these articles. I think that would be a much better milestone to kind of track.
Yeah, I think here you can create a single step funnel and then maybe break it down, and maybe you slice and dice your visitor recording using behavior targeting.
Yeah, behavior targeting would be absolutely key in this case.
Yeah, so because you can see where your visitors are spending your most time at, what are the areas where, what are the portions of the pages where they're clicking, or with, maybe spending the most time on,
Yeah.
and things like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Then another question we have is from Rishi. Rishi is asking, is this webinar for enterprise plan? Because our plan does not have recordings. So Rishi, so most of the features I think we discussed about were premium features. Like we discussed about custom dimensions, we discussed about survey recordings and things like that. But for you, Rishi, I think, and for everybody else who's attending the session, you can these features are on a request only basis. We are also rolling out these features for customers on our growth and pro plan. All you just need to do is simply reach out to us, either me or Ashwin, and we'll be happy to activate these features for you for a free trial of 14 days, where you can try these features up, see if it adds value to you guys, and maybe we can take it forward from there. Another question we are getting from Davron is, how do you upload or create custom dimensions? I think we need to do more, maybe catching up with customers in terms of how they can create new segments.
So yeah, in this case, it's a VWO snippet code. So what we can do is probably also share a couple of KB articles after this webinar that helps you with setting up custom dimensions. But basically, all you have to do is put a VWO code on your website, and you need to send certain values, keys and values, just like you would do to any of the CRM platforms, and use that to dissect, slice and dice your data. So what we can do is we can share a couple of KB articles after the session to help you with that.
Great, great. So, guys, this one more question which we have, which is coming from Ryan. Ryan has a question that I can see pretty much everything what my visitor is doing, apart from the fiction areas he or she has on filling out my checkout form. So how I can track and understand that what are the areas on a form which they can optimize.
So in that case, obviously what you can do first of all is look at the visitor recordings of that particular page. But I would also recommend, form analysis there, because what you need to do, you need to kind of deep dive into why people are abandoning certain forms. So maybe people are people are not able to understand certain fields, or they're spending a lot of time in a particular field, or they're refilling the information again and again. So for that, I would recommend, highly recommend looking into form analysis. But still, you can look at visitor recordings and see what is the behavior on that particular page. But form analysis is the tool that will give you the insights on what are the fields where people are getting stuck, and why are they abandoning the forms. So if you want to optimize forms, I think form analysis would be very important.
Yeah, I think it has some amazing features. Like it tells you about hesitation time, the amount of time a visitor is taking or a user is taking into filling out every field. It even tells you how many times somebody entered few characters and then erased all of that, maybe because you're throwing out an error on that, and things like that. So while optimizing forms, I think what we need to understand is that what are the information we critically need at the time of filling out the form, because we ran a similar experiment while signing up folks for VWO, and we realized that folks do not prefer writing their passwords and everything in the first go. So what we did was we cut down on the number of fields at the time of signing up, and we break it into steps. Like in the first step, we'll only providing us with an email and a password. Then in the second step, you're telling us about your goals and your phone number and things like that. And so that's another way of optimizing your forms, and that's an insight we got by using form analysis on VWO for VWO. Okay, with that, I think it's a wrap. We don't have any more questions coming in. Uh, Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot, Ashwin, for enlightening us with all these powerful features. We'll be coming back again in a couple of weeks with another product webinars. We're planning to, just pick out problems like which we saw around having a formal research process. We'll also, we have a comprehensive state of research report which we follow, which we ran on our customer base, and for all the insights which we have from them, we'll start to address all of them through our product webinars. Till then, keep optimizing. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.